We are Emmy and Marcus, a Swedish couple living on our 40-foot boat, currently sailing in the Caribbean. In 2019, we bought Linnea. We fixed her up for an Atlantic crossing, and 3 years later, we fulfilled our dream. This is a mini-series where we talk about things that we have learned along the way, and answering your questions. In other words, lessons we like to share. Welcome aboard! Hi everyone, and welcome to this little mini-series that we like to call Lessons We Like to Share.
Given that we have just published 4 episodes covering our Atlantic crossing, we figured that it would be a perfect topic to start talk about. In other words, lessons we like to share from our Atlantic crossing.
And the biggest lesson that we learned is that we had the totally wrong mindset. We had our mindset that this crossing the Atlantic from east to west, was going to be a walk in the park and really nice sailing.
Reading books, swimming, and just have a nice time for 2 to 3 weeks.
Because that was what most people had told us that the crossing would be. But we did not have those conditions, and I think it would have been a lot easier to cope with that if we had our mindset that it could be hard.
The weather forecast for our crossing was very, very promising.
We could also choose our departure like how we wanted, and we thought we chose a weather window that was really good. But yeah.
If it was or not, I don't know. But for us, the start was quite okay if we look in the mirror, but the last 2 weeks of the episode was quite crappy most of the time.
Yeah, and mostly because of the waves. The waves made it really hard to have a life on board outside or beside just sitting in the cockpit holding on for your dear life. So with that said, the mindset is really, really important, and we should have done it differently.
I think if we would have another mindset, I think the crossing would be rather okay, I think.
Yeah.
We had wind all the time, we didn't have to motor more just one day in the beginning of the trip, and we always had wind, and so it was the waves and our mindset, but especially our mindset, I think.
Yeah. And we got a question when we asked on Instagram if we did not have any way to download weather and to see that it was going to be that crappy weather. And if we did get weather, why didn't we stop at Cape Verde? And there's 2 simple explanations to that. The first being that the forecast looked really promising still when we were at that point where we could either turn west to the Caribbean or continue south to Cape Verde. So it was absolutely a possibility, but given the forecast, we didn't really see any reasons to do so. And also, when we were at that point, we had quite testing conditions. It was in the beginning where the waves had started building up, and we were not really into the rhythm. So stopping at Cape Verde at that time felt like it would be really hard to get back out, because we really needed to find our sea legs.
And we knew that the weather forecast said the weather should be better the coming days. So we thought, why just don't continue?
No, just ride out this one and then glide through the rest. The second thing that we learned is that it's really nice to have a buddy boat. We had a buddy boat that had crossed the Atlantic before, and we sailed quite at the same pace. So we were during these 3 weeks, we were like 1 day apart from each other at the most.
Yeah.
And that was really nice. Not only for safety reasons,
but also to have somebody to talk to that were in the exact same position with the weather and the waves and so on. So somebody just to share some thoughts with, or try some new stuff with the sails out together, or just share some new ideas.
Yeah, and share the experience.
Yeah.
Because even though we had communication with our friends and family back home in Sweden and other cruises that we have met along the way, it was really special to have someone in that situation that was also in that situation.
At the exact same time.
Yeah. Because when we felt crappy, it was kind of nice to know that they had the same experience and they felt it was crappy too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That lifted our spirits a lot.
Yeah, it did.
And definitely something that we would go for again.
If it's possible, of course.
Yeah.
So, for safety, and yeah, it's nice to have a friend near if you want to talk.
Yeah. We're also really glad that we prepped a lot of food in Tenerife. We had our freezer full of food that we could just heat up in the oven, like just boil some pasta or rice or tortilla breads. And then we had full meals almost every day.
Yeah, and it was perfect when we started the crossing, when our sea legs wasn't that good yet. And it was also good in the middle and the end of the crossing, since the waves and the weather was quite crappy. So it was very fortunate to have it in the start, and yeah, when shit happens.
Yeah. We're also very glad that we had a proper shift schedule during the night. We did our separate shifts from 8 to 8.
Yeah.
8 in the evening to 8 in the morning. And that was super nice to know that you have a specific time that you get to sleep, and you know that at this point Marcus is going to wake up, come out, and yeah, your shift is over. That helped a lot.
It was a lot easier to just lay down and rest or sleep if you could do that. Or I think it was very well worth for me.
Yeah. We're also super glad for our mini tent, the cover that we have to put on the back of the spray hood, because you get an enclosure, and having that during night, it was super nice. It removes a lot of the sounds and you feel very secure in that little bubble.
Yeah, in the nighttime it could be quite humid and cold on the Atlantic. And the spray from the sea or the spray from the squalls, and you're always dry and protected in that mini tent or what type of enclosure you have. So that was really something well worth to be done before you do crossing.
Yeah, and also something that a lot of other cruisers that we have talked about on this side of the Atlantic have said.
Yeah.
That they wish they had some kind of protection so that you can stay dry during the night.
Yeah.
We also try to not do maneuvers during night. Just sail slightly in the wrong direction when it's dark.
Just so we don't have to tack or jibe during the night, or have like big sail trimming or reefing or big stuff to do on deck. So the other one sleeping could do that in peace.
Yeah, which is also nice. And when we did our first night sail to Helgoland, like in June, I think,
yeah,
we set up rules for what you are allowed to do when you are alone and the other person is sleeping. Because it's very nice to know that, like for instance, that when I'm sleeping, I know that Marcus is not allowed to get up on deck if he doesn't wake me up first. And then you don't have to be down below and worried that you wake up and your partner is no longer on the boat when you get up.
Yes. And we always stayed like clicked on or secured in the cockpit, and we always wear the life jackets during the night or when we're alone.
Yeah.
Or when we leave the cockpit enclosure.
Yeah. So that's a very good tip if you're going to do this like as a double-handed. Set out rules for what's allowed to do and what's not allowed to do during night or when the other person is sleeping.
So on this type of crossings, a day more or less doesn't care. So if you sail faster or slower during the night, just to wake your partner up, oh, we have to jibe now so we can go faster or something. Yeah, we didn't think that was something to care about, actually.
No, not worth it.
No.
It's more worth the sleep.
Yeah, the sleep and the smoothness of the sailing, I think.
Yeah. So we got a few more questions on Instagram. The first one being, what was the hardest part?
I think the hardest part was, the mindset and then the weather we got.
Yeah.
And then when we figure out that we had a problem with the rudder.
Yeah. And I think that part was the hardest part. Those days when we didn't really know what to do with the rudder, and we could see in the forecast that the weather was suddenly turning worse. There was no way for us to avoid high waves and high gusts. So before you found that solution with the sunflower oil, we were actually really scared that we wouldn't have a working rudder for the entire Atlantic.
Yeah, and turning back to Cape Verde was a no-no, because that's meant beating, going upwind to Cape Verde for like 1-2 days, or at least 2 days in this crappy weather with those big waves, and that will be very, very stressful for the rudder. So we thought it was better to reef down the boat and sail her as smooth and balanced as possible.
Yeah. And then Marcus found this solution, so it turned out pretty okay, but those 2 days were really stressful.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. We also got a question about hull shape and if we think that it would have been different if we had sailed with a more classical blue water cruiser type of boat. But we don't know. We can never put ourselves in these exact same conditions with a different kind of boat. What we know is that Linnea is built to be very lively and moves very quickly in the water. But we also know that we have friends that crossed in more classical blue water cruiser boats, and they have the same experience, that it feels like you are in a washing machine. So yeah, maybe not. Maybe different sail sets had done a bigger difference. But there's a lot more to talk about this. We got some questions about how we got weather and so as well. And I think we're going to save that for another one of these mini-series episodes. Because it's just too much to talk about to cover in this one. But this was basically our general thoughts about crossings and our first ocean crossing. And maybe what we would do differently and what we are glad to do again if we do it, when we do it again.
Hopefully you like this type of special episode, and please give it a thumbs up, and see you next week, guys. Fair winds.
Bye.
Bye.
If you like the videos we produce, please visit our Patreon page to find out how you can support the production. You'll find all the links in the description below.